everybody, Philippa here, and welcome to my talk on the comedy of errors. Have you ever had the fantasy that somehow you were lost or misidentified at birth, taken home by the wrong family, and that instead of sitting on your broken couch eating a boiled potato, maybe you should be on your true family yacht, sipping champagne somewhere in the Caribbean? Well, you wouldn't be the first person to have speculated on the personal consequences of lost or stolen identity. Welcome to the world of the Comedy of Errors, a play that Shakespeare wrote in 1594 based on a tale by Plautus in 200 BC called the Menechmi. In the Menechmi, a merchant father living in Syracuse has identical twins. He takes one of them with him on business, and somehow that boy gets lost. The father assumes him to be dead and is heartbroken. When he returns to Syracuse, he renames his remaining son by the name of the lost son, Menechmus, hoping thereby to retain something of the two of them. When Menechmus grows up, he goes in search of his lost brother or lost identity and takes his slave with him. They travel for 6 years, eventually ending up in a town called Epidamnum. There they find that somehow people keep thinking that they know Menechmus and he is estranged from all these situations, thereby estranged, of course, from himself. And it doesn't take him long to work out that he has come upon the world of his lost brother, who is now wealthy and married. So Shakespeare took this story and added, for the complexity and the comic possibilities, an extra set of twins. And I think what he also does by adding this extra set, one is highborn, the other set is lowborn. And so it gives him the opportunity, which he so often relished in his plays, to question the whole idea of rank and assumed worth. At the beginning of the Comedy of Errors, we meet a merchant called Aegeon. He's come from Syracuse to the port town of Ephesus, which is a big mistake because there is a warfare going on between the merchants of the two cities, and he's told that either he has to come up with a large fine or be put to death. So because he doesn't have the money, he tells a story, one of the longest stories in Shakespeare, in, by the way, the shortest play. In this story, he tells of how he and his wife had given birth to identical twins, somehow, rather puzzlingly, both called Antipholus. In the same place, another low-born couple gave birth to their own set of identical twins. And so Aegeon and his wife adopted the set of low-born twins in order to bring them up as servants to their own twins. And these twins also share a name, the name of Dromio. In the telling of Aegeon's story, he has us jump forward some years to a sea voyage made by himself and his family. A tempest has visited the seas and broken the boat that they're traveling on in half, so that he and one of his sons and one of the servants, lashed to one end of the boat, end up back in Syracuse, but his wife and the other 2 boys disappear. As his son Antipholus grows up, he knows in himself that he has to strike out in search of his lost brother. It doesn't take a lot to imagine what happens. As in Plautus's long ago tale, the Antipholus and servant Dromio end up in Ephesus, finding suddenly that they're entrusted with gold, that Antipholus is expected back at dinner to a wife and a home that he doesn't know he has. And this play, observing the Aristotelian unities of place and time, brings us into the world of the 2 long-lost brothers now sharing one day in one place. So in running the course of one day, it also traces a beautiful arc toward the reuniting of brothers, the healing of scars, and the coming together of a whole family, because the mother is somehow found to be living as an abbess in Ephesus. The arc of the plot itself is framed within the impending execution of Aegeon. It begins with his sentence. He either has to come up with the fee within a day or expect his death. And it just about ends with his pardon. And remember, this is a comedy, so there has to be a pardon. But in between, there's so much complication and misidentification. There is as well that wonderful Shakespearean underscore of darkness to balance light, of heaviness to balance levity. Mistaken identity gives us the opportunity to contemplate what it is that makes us human beings unique, what it is we see when we hear or encounter another human being. You don't have to be a separated identical twin to be in search of wholeness, to come home perhaps to where you've never been before. But this metaphor of identical twins reveals the magic of what we humans are mysteriously in search of when looking to fulfill our identities. Of the sea as an age-old symbol of loss, and remember that saying, I was all at sea, and of how identity itself can unfold in incredibly surprising ways. So it is that Shakespeare has one Antipholus be quite different from the other, seeking his lost self, and he calls himself a drop of water seeking the wider pool, whereas the other Antipholus never even knows that there is anything missing. He is busy, he's a merchant, he's self-centered, and it's not until he meets his long-lost brother that he realizes that he's been missing anything for his whole life. And so that sense of completion comes as a beautiful surprise. There is also lots of question and challenge for women's identity in this play. And we see Antipholus of Ephesus' wife, Adriana, come to her own understanding that her value is not in gold or even in being personally valued as youthful or beautiful by her husband. Her value is ultimately in how she sees herself and the world. This play ends with a beautiful reuniting of family and self. And I think one of the most precious things about the play is that it gives the thematic closure to the Dromio twins, the servants, the people who all their lives have lived in the service of others. At the end, they are no longer defined by servitude. We came into the world like brother and brother, one Dromio says to the other. Let's go now, hand in hand, not one before another. Thank you, everybody, and see you next week.